I'm so happy to see all of you here this evening, and thank you for joining us for an information session brought to you by the Independence Party. Truly a grassroots movement with real solution for real problems that all Albertans are facing and will continue to face unless we take a stand together and fight for change. At this time, I would like to invite our friend Carolyn Verbeck to open this event with a prayer. Please bow your heads.
Dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity that we have this evening. Thank you for bringing us here together. And we just ask, Lord, that we recognize your sovereignty, Lord. And we just ask that you would work your will in this province. And Lord, this evening that you would bless each of the speakers and help their messages be clear. Please open our ears and our hearts to hear the messages that they have for us. And we just thank you again, Lord, for bringing us together. We just pray your blessing upon this fellowship. In your precious name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Carolyn. There's just a fly on my paper. Get that off of there. My name is Shannon Packham, and I'm from Patricia, Alberta. You may recognize me from the Freedom Movement or from my involvement first with the Alberta Unity Project and then with the Alberta Prosperity Project. I'm a teacher, but the most important jobs that I've ever had in my life is, well, I have a husband. He's the most patient man in Canada, I guarantee you that. And several adult children, but the most important job that I've ever had is for all of the little people that call me grandma. So they are the biggest reason that I've been traveling across this province from the very, very south to almost the very north. Because if we don't do this now, there's not going to be anything left for them. I'm truly just trying to be the change that I want to see in the world. Here's an interesting quote from a young man, Eli Wiesel, who endured and survived the ravages of World War II. His experiences caused him to note the following: one person of integrity can make a difference. Integrity is the character trait of having honesty, strong moral principles, and moral uprightness. The Independence Party holds this trait as essential. The speakers you will hear this evening will help you to understand how this characteristic will be key in helping Alberta achieve the greatness we all know that she is capable of. We're more than just another party. This is a true freedom movement. We are gaining momentum in a true sweeping fashion. We are the only party who will hold a referendum on independence, which gives us the leverage we need with the East. This truly is a movement for the people, by the people, with not one single politician at our table. We believe in integrity, we believe in honesty, we believe in transparency, and we believe in being accountable to the people of Alberta. The last couple of months truly have been a flurry of activity. We held a leadership race, a race where the candidates started out as friends and remained so to the very end. At one point during one of the debates I was at, they actually stopped debating with each other and hugged each other. That's not something I've never seen before at any other debate. Not that I spend a lot of time at those. Another point of interest is that 68% of eligible voters for the Independence Party cast their ballots. That's something else that no other party will ever be able to, well, up till now, has never been able to claim that fame. We're truly making history right now, and I invite all of you to join us. So at this time, I would like to invite our friend Carrie to come up to the stage here. We have a little item. It's a pretty cute little item. And we're going to auction it off.
I thought you were saying I was the cute item.
We can auction Carrie off too if you want. I'm using with Carrie.
Vicky may not like that. So I hope everybody brought their wallets, because here's the thing. We're a grassroots party, and in order to at least make a dent and hopefully win and make a majority, it's going to cost money, it's going to cost volunteers, it's going to cost time. So one of the ways that we're doing that, of course, is to sell the merch. So hopefully people will walk out with a hat or a shirt or a flag or a decal or anything like that. So please, I advise you, if you haven't done it already, please walk over there and take a look at that. You can do it anytime. It doesn't really matter what. Do it whenever you want to do it. It's totally what.
Just remember, I was a teacher, so get a hold.
That's right. Yeah. But in the meantime, so Pastor Art, he tells the story much more eloquently than I do. But essentially, these were done up. They are very unique items. They were done up by children, and he'll say that, done by the children. It's a very unique item, and what we're trying to do is to auction this off, and Pastor Art will end up signing it for the winner. So I just happen to have, I don't know if you know what the donation limits are for Alberta, but you could actually donate up to $4,300 and get a $1,000 tax credit, so it would only really cost you $3,300. So we'll start the bidding at $4,300. No, okay. Let's start the bidding. What do you think? I think
I think I might be more if I could get this to stick.
so. Actually, they don't even know what it is. They don't even. It's a plunger, and we're trying to unclog the swamp here in Alberta, right? And actually, I should tell a little bit more about this. I know it says great. Let's make Alberta great again. There you go. That's exactly what it is. Look at that. The flag's got to be worth $30, guaranteed. So let's start the bidding let's start at 50. I think everybody here could probably afford $50 on that. So let's start with the bid. Start with 50. Get out here, 50. We got a 50 right there. Right? It's 60, 70. We're going with 70, 170, going to the waist. Come on, there. We got 80 over there. I'm making that up. We got 80 over there. We're doing 80. She goes, what? I said 70. No, it's 80. It's 80. I'm sure you said 80. Bob put his hand up and said 90. I saw you, Bob. I saw you. 100 right there. $100. Come on, $100. 100. We're looking for 110. With the 110, one of the 10 in the back. 120. We'll get 120. Come on, we gotta get 120. 120 right there. Right front. 120 going 130. 130. Anybody 130? It's a quality plunger. Yeah, it's exactly what professional plumbers use this, so it's got to be good. So we're at 30. Did you have your hand up? I thought, don't scratch your head right now. I'm going to get all confused. We're still 120, 120. You want to hear 130? 130, come on. 130 right there. Vicky, it's my money. No, it's 130. We got 130 for Vicky. And the back, she's scratching her head, but I'm not sure. No, Trace, keep your hand down. 130. Let's go 130 going once, 130 going. We got one. I said
140.
We're 140 going once. There you go, 140. Go 140 once, 140 twice. Come on, 140. Let's go 150. Anybody 150? 150. Right in there, 150. He just came out of nowhere. He was going, I'm waiting until 150. 150 is mine. 150. We're going to hear 160. 160. We're at 160 over here again. A little bit of a battle. We got 160. We're over here 170. 170, 170, 171, 170. You can't pitch against yourself. You're still 160. Settle down. I know it's exciting, and I know I'm up here, so settle down. What else do we got? That's a quality 800 strand Egyptian cloth. I don't even know what that means. It's got to be that. It was made by the children. The children weave this on little tiny weaving things. What do you weave on? A weaver? Something like it. A loom? Yeah, okay. Loom? I don't know. Okay, so we're still 160, I believe. 160 going once, 160. 500 is what he said. No. 165? 165. We got 165 going once. 170, 171. 170 over here, 180. Going to, how about 175? Go here, 175. We got 170 right now, 170 going once, 170 going twice. Hit the plunger down. I don't know where it goes. 170, so thank you so much. There you go, that was amazing. And I believe that we'll go right here, and I guess you get a donation receipt for that, wouldn't you? Yes. If you're doing that, absolutely. And yeah. Gerald Huber bought it. Thank you so much, Cheryl. It'll be on TikTok. Will it be? I'll have to sign it too then. No, thank you very much. And don't forget, we've got tons of merch back there too. Thank you.
Thank you. Woo! That was a lot of fun. Except for you can't bid against yourself.
Right? I ended up at 170 anyway, so.
And you looked really, really like, oh no, when we said 500 your way. Like, 500 your way. find it over here. Okay, so as Carrie said, we have a membership table at the back. We've got merchandise. Pastor Art has a solidarity merchandise as well. And every little bit helps. So it keeps the wheels moving on this bus across the province. There's refreshments at the back. The washrooms are out the back there, past the tables. If there is an emergency in this building, find an exit and get out, okay? That's all I ask. I don't know what the emergency action plan is, but just leave. Okay. Another thing that I need to note to note is that nothing happens without the volunteers. And so if we could just have a quick round of applause for the people that helped set up here today. Without the volunteers, we would have nobody to make things happen. All right, let's get rolling. Our first guest has worked in the oil and gas industry for over 20 years. She's currently a regulatory and operations consultant. In April of 2020, she got involved in the Freedom Movement. And in July 2020, she got involved with the Independence Party. During the Independence Summits, she was the only party leader who never hesitated to unite with the other independence parties. Currently, she is the Director of Membership and is working tirelessly to create constituency associations in order that we can field candidates in all 87 constituencies. Don't let her size fool you. She knows the road to independence will be a challenge, yet she is facing it head on. She has the strength and courage of a true fighter. She is also the mother of 2 grown sons and the past leader of the Independence Party. She knows exactly what needs to be done to crest the hill of independence. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to Vicki Bayford.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all of you for attending today. So I really wanted to talk about what we are doing in our plans to move forward to ensure that we have a chance in the next 2023 election. And a lot of that includes every single one of you that's sitting in this room. So right now, the party is, we're trying to get volunteers together in every area, in every constituency, to start building these CAs. Now it's really intimidating. This is what I found in my experience the last few months trying to get these things up and running, is that people are like, well, who am I? I don't step up as president or secretary. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know politics. Well, I can tell you in 2020 when I volunteered and got involved with the party, I thought I was going to be handing out rap cards and making phone calls. And then slowly, within a month, I think I was on some policy committees and starting to help, getting my voice out there and giving my opinions and my expertise to help build the policies that are currently within our party program. After that, they needed a CFO, and I have a bit of an accounting background from my earlier years. And so I thought, okay, well, I can do bookkeeping, so I can help be the CFO. Then they needed a communications director, so I was CFO and communications director, and we were a very small party at the time, so it was still a lot of work, but a little bit more manageable. So through that, I've learned a lot. I've had to learn how to be a tech geek. I've had to learn how the actual system works. So I guess that's what I'm here today to talk about is what a constituency association is. Before I got involved with this party, I didn't even know what a constituency association was. I thought I was a really well-informed voter. I quickly found out over the last couple of years that I really had no idea how the system actually works. And that's really important that we do start educating ourselves and giving power back to ourselves and to our communities. So a constituency association is a group of volunteers that get together to your number one goal is obviously to find a candidate. The person that you want to represent you. Guess what? You get to pick that. If I understood that these MLA candidates that would pop up in the election were just They just came, I don't know, I just thought they just came out of nowhere. The party just picked a person. I didn't even realize there was an election process involved in that. That's just how uneducated I was about how our these constituency associations were or what they were. So the main goal, again, is to find a candidate. And guess what? You get to pick them. You get to find the community leaders in your area and ask them to run if they believe in the platform of this party. You get to decide. You get to vote. Maybe you are that candidate. Maybe you're that person that wants to step up and represent your neighbors. The second job, obviously, is to help support that candidate by fundraising, door knocking, phone calls. And another big item that you get to have a say in, and this is one thing I actually take particular pride in about this party, is that our members truly get to help write our policy. So our policy gets opened up every year, and as the CA can actually put through motions to our policy convention to help create the policy that is pushing this party forward. So if you have an expertise, whether it's in firearms, healthcare, all those things that matter to us, and even if you're not an expert in those things, but you have some good ideas, put them forward. That's how your voice gets heard. Had I known what I know now 15 years ago, I would have been far more involved. I was involved in the PTA, was involved in my kids' sports, and I was on lots of boards like that. But I really didn't know that within my community, had I known better, I could have been involved on the political level. And most of us go, well, who wants to be involved with this? I surely didn't. I had no interest in politics. I didn't know what it even meant to be involved. But really now I know that this is the only way to have your voice heard. Going to the ballot box is a big thing, but it's not enough, because that's why we're where we're at now, because we all just kind of passively, and not knowing what we didn't know, just kind of sat back and let this political system kind of override us, because we just didn't know. So my job now is to educate all of you and everybody that will listen to me about how to empower yourselves and how to get your voice back into this province. So we need you, all of you, to help set up these CAs. Right now, I am actively looking for volunteers. So if you are in the Brooks Medicine Hat riding or the Cypress Medicine Hat riding, and you would like to put your name forward to even help get the CA board built, I would much appreciate it, and you can come talk to me at the table later on tonight. But just know how important it is that if you don't get involved, nobody else will. No one is coming to save you right now. The only person that's going to save you is you. Tip isn't going to save you. Pastor Art's not going to save you. I'm not going to save you. You have to save yourself. And the only way to do that is to get involved and use your voice. We're a structure, and we're a registered party, and we have the power to do this. And I would say, again, my biggest challenge in the last few months when I've been setting up the CA boards that I have been, is people are just afraid. They don't see their own value in what they can contribute to an association. And you all have value. You all have a skill set. You all have something that you can give. Sorry. Yes, and you only do need 2 people. I would say a good number to get one started is 5 or 6, but essentially you need a president and a secretary, just people to kick things off. But if you have a good 5 or 6 people in your association just to get things going, you have a great start. You have a great base for volunteers. And you don't have to be on the board to help out either, but you do need a board. just so you can keep things organized and we have that communication flow between the CA board to the provincial board. This is how you keep your MLAs accountable. Another big difference between our party and many other parties is that our members are allowed to vote at the CA board meetings. So should your CA board put a motion through for whether it's for policy, whether it's for spending money in that CA once you have a bank account going, you get to have a say in what's going on in your CA, whether you're a member of the board or not. And there's no other party that I'm aware of anyway, that actually allows general members to vote at a regular board meeting. So, I'm just trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. But yes, this is really important and we really need you. And you have to be the ones that get involved. The last founding meeting we did was last Saturday. So the Strathcona Sherwood CA was just founded last week. And it was quite funny and a learning experience for me. So when I was taking nominations off the floor, it was crickets. And I was like, oh, no one's putting up their hand for a position. And I just needed to remind them that, again, they have to save themselves, they have to get involved. And at whatever level that you can. Because without every one of us taking steps towards this goal, we're never going to reach it. But I know that we can because I've seen the people that have been stepping up. And anyway, at the end of that board meeting, after a little bit of a pep talk, everybody put up their hand that was there. So we almost ended up with a completely full board. And they just needed to be reminded that they were valuable and that their voice was valuable. And that's what this is about, is a lot of us just don't have the confidence or don't think that, you know, they have the ability or they don't have the skill set needed to be in politics. We all do. But we live politics every day. As much as we hate thinking about our lives that way, we do. We're paying into a system right now that is not really even the fairest system at this point. And the only way to change that is you. You can be the voice. You can be the change. Anyway, with that, I'm going to hand this back over to Shannon, but I encourage all of you that are interested to please reach out to me at the end of this meeting. And if you are interested in getting some things going, come talk to me. Thank you.
Thanks, Vicki. I just had to tell her to go this way for safety because the cords are all over here. Safety first. Okay, so there's enough people here. We should have a CA board done by the time this is over. All right, our next guest is a well-known advocate for the poor and the homeless, a warrior who stands for human rights, free speech as a Canadian clergyman, and a civil and human rights activist. He was born in Poland and grew up under the communist regime, seeing soldiers with machine guns and tanks in the streets as people rose up in 1981 to fight for their freedoms. He experienced communism and also witnessed the end of communism in Poland. As a teenager, he immigrated to Greece, and in 1995, he immigrated to Canada. Despite life's struggles, he became involved in many different businesses, such as shipping and distribution of goods, building and development with 30 full-time employees, 50 job sites, and dozens of contractors. He also owned and operated a high-end magazine in Calgary called Calgary Living. After experiencing a true medical miracle in the arrival of his firstborn child, he shifted gears and committed his life to serving God by serving and protecting the people. He began charity work with the homeless on the streets of Calgary while continuing with his businesses. In 2005, when the crisis of homelessness reached its climax, he decided to walk away from the business world to never return. He ended up using his own savings to put himself into the fight for every human being that was falling through the cracks. Within a few years, he went from a small, unknown ministry to an organization that was operating out of 7 different locations in Calgary, producing a TV show, as well as distributing hundreds of thousands of meals per year to those in need. He has managed to form a number of policies that were implemented by the government to improve the lives of the poor in Canada. His work as an advocate has been recognized many times by the media, such as the National Post, who called him the symbol of free speech, and also in documentaries that have been broadcast in Poland about his work as the street advocate. In 2012, he received a Free Speech Award for his 7 years of ongoing defense of Canadian constitutional rights and freedoms from an organization called the Progressive Group for Independent Business. In the past 3 years, he has stood up against the Alberta government for their tyrannical overreach at the expense of his freedom, his own well-being, and time with his family, and he continues to fight today for you. You may recognize him from mainstream media for his involvement in the convoys, 16 or so arrests, I think it's 16, for feeding the hungry and spreading God's word. Or perhaps, maybe you recognize him for his invitation to the Alberta Health Services to get out of his place of worship. Ladies and gentlemen, the newly elected leader of the Independence Party of Alberta, Pastor Artur Pawlowski.
Thank you so much. Well, when I was listening to that introduction, I thought to myself, wow, it's way too long. It's way too long. I don't like to listen about myself. I want to thank you so much for coming. And as I was listening to Vicky, I thought to myself, why are we here? Why are you here? So I want to start with something different. I'll share my story with you. I'll tell you what brought me to this place. But I want to ask someone to come here and share her story. It's a short one, but so powerful. Because I am here standing and fighting for the future of this country, for the future of Alberta, for children. I want to ask you to come, if you can come, Rhonda, and tell the story about the hut and your son, Carter. I think that was so powerful, and I believe that's why we are here. We're here for those youngsters, for those children. So here is your son's story.
So on Monday night when I was in Medicine Hat, Pastor Art gave me one of the red hats because I followed him out and I thought, oh, I forgot to pick up Carter's hat, the get out hat. And Pastor Art signed it. So when we got home, I left it on his doorknob. The next morning, he comes in and sees me before he leaves for school and he says, Mom, this hat rocks. Today, during grade 11 social studies, his teacher decided to ask him specifically, what do you think about Mr. Trudeau? Remember, he is my son. He was polite, and he said, Mr. Trudeau is not doing anything for the rest of us. He's selfish, and he doesn't like Alberta, and the only thing we can do is have independence. And his teacher said, how would you know so much about independence? He says, well, my mom got involved this summer and that's all over our house. And that's the only answer we have.
So why are we here? We're here because we are sick and tired of the indoctrination in the school. The teacher was not happy. Why was he not happy? because he has been indoctrinated and he keeps indoctrinating our youngsters. That's his job. And you gotta remember, I grew up behind the Iron Curtain. Every single day we went to school, we were indoctrinated. Everywhere you looked, from the media, papers, TV, they were forcing that garbage left and right. I remember growing up, we were told that Stalin, and we were to refer to him as Dedushka Stalin, which means Grandpa Stalin, was a savior of Europe. We were told that we are to hold him in high esteem because he is the very one that saved Europe. Of course, the truth was not acceptable. The truth was you were not allowed to teach the truth. But I remember this older lady, she was a history teacher, and she was about to retire. I remember when she was telling us, here is what I have to tell you, but here is the truth. And this woman put that seed into our hearts to look for the truth, to look for history. Right now, Trudeau, Castro as I call him, he wants to deplatform everyone and anyone that disagrees with him. He wants to censor our media. He already bought the mainstream media, now he wants to censor or deplatform the independent media like Rebel News, North, you name it, Western Standard. Why? Because the villains always use the same tactics. They need to keep their rhetorics alive. Why? Because in the Bible it says that the truth will set the captives free. The truth. From the very beginning to the very end, everything around us is always about the same thing, is the truth. What is the truth? If you remember, if you know your Bible, after all, I am a pastor, so I'll tell you a little bit. When Pontius Pilate was having a conversation with Jesus Christ, he says, what is the truth? So everyone, it seems, is looking for the truth, but when you're dealing with tyrants, when you're dealing with dictators, truth is not allowed. And that's what we're facing right now. People ask me, how come from the very beginning you oppose the tyranny? Well, because I grew up under tyranny. I can smell it from the miles away. I know the tyranny's tactics. I know what it needs to happen to implement dictatorship, because I grew up under dictatorship. And it's always the same way, fear and terror. I remember when the COVID, in quote, came, and I'm not denying that there is a virus, I'm not denying that there is sickness, the flu. I mean, every year people do die because of flu. I got it many times, and I got 3 children, and pretty much every year, one of them will come with some kind of a bug. And usually, because we love each other so much, they will give us the flu as a gift. So, once a year, once every 2 years, I'll get sick myself and my wife, and you move on. But sometimes people do die. I'm not disputing that. What I'm saying is that the moment they showed up with this sickness, put it this way, with this virus, everything they were saying just did not add up. For example, when they sent me a letter telling me that I have to stop feeding the poor because we are in the middle of the great pandemic, I said, doesn't make any sense. What you're saying does not make any sense. We're dealing with 15 to 20,000 homeless individuals on the streets of Calgary every single year. What do you think is going to happen to them if you shut down shelters, kick them out on the streets, and forbid ministries like mine feeding them? What do you think is going to happen to them? No answer. I'll tell you what is going to happen. They're going to turn into a life of crime. They're going to steal, they're going to rob, they're going to enter your house, they will break into your garage, into your car. They're going to get necessities of life this way or that way. I mean, that's a natural thing. It just did not make any sense. So I disputed it. I sent a letter to the mayor. He did not care. I sent a letter to the premier. He did not care. I sent letters to all of them. Every minister that there is, no one replied. No one cared. And that was my proof that this has nothing to do with keeping people alive or keeping our loved ones healthy and protected. This is an overreach. This is about control. This is about implementation of tyranny. How do you implement dictatorship? How do you implement tyranny? By scaring people. You have to give them an enemy. And I'm not going to give you the entire historical lesson, but in the 30s, Adolf Hitler, late 20s, early 30s, he came to power because he used another virus. He called it the Jewish people. And he scared the entire German population with that virus, those unclean people. And every blame and everything was focused on them. When I was growing up, the same thing the Russians did behind the Iron Curtain. I remember learning about the Western civilization. You were the walking murderers, you were walking zombies, you were to eat us alive, you were evil and bad. And everywhere every time we were going to school, we were always told stories from the Western countries. Americans, capitalism is eating people alive, is destroying people. People are starving and dying. But socialism and communism is the best system on earth. Indoctrination. And that's exactly what we are witnessing right now. So Rhonda, with her son, she did a pretty good job. And the son was challenged by the teacher. And he came out standing. I have a 22-year-old son, Nathaniel, and I remember when he went to university, he came back and he said, the only thing they teach us about is how to hate each other, how to hate that we are white, we are responsible for every disease, every plague, everything, every disaster, every war on earth. And he said to me, Dad, you're paying so much money for the school, but they're not teaching us anything. He's, by the way, starting to become a lawyer, because I need one. I need an in-house lawyer. Over 100 court cases, 340 citations, 16 arrests. It would be a lot cheaper if I had him earlier and sent him to school. You know, it's absolutely insane. But that's what he said, and that made me angry. I was not paying the big bucks for them to tell my son that being white is somehow a disease now. The coming from Poland is a bad thing, that only the natives are the best and awesome, and the colored people are the number one, and we are the bottom of the barrel. I remember one day he comes from school and he says, you won't believe what the teacher said. We have a new teacher, he walks in and he says, I am a socialist, if you don't like it, there is the door. And I've heard that over and over again. Do you know my son finished university with honors, and he would not even go to pick up his paper. He was so disgusted. And I said, why are you not going there? There's a big celebration after the university and, the huts and all that stuff. I said, I don't want to have anything to do with those people. I only passed it, I only finished so I can have the paper and do the work and bring sanity back to our land, but I don't want to have anything to do with those Nazis, those communists, socialist evildoers. So we are not teaching children anymore history. We're not teaching them really mathematics, biology. I mean, right now our children think that when you have 2 cows, you can have a calf. I mean, it's insanity at the highest levels. They don't even understand how biology works. We're in a big trouble. So I decided to get involved, and as a pastor, I'm doing this on a regular basis, and I preach and I tell people about what's going on from the historical point of view, from biblical point of view, spiritual, psychological point of view. But when they kept arresting me, when they kept coming, over and over again, and I had to kick them out. This was not my first time when I told them to get out. They have been invading our church for years. It started 2005. 2006, I have become the first Canadian citizen to be arrested for publicly reading Bible in a public park in Calgary, not with amplification, just to 6 parishioners. 7 officers arrested me. They forced me to walk backwards, and I faced 1 year of imprisonment for my crime of reading Psalms. I realized we're in a deep trouble. Then they started to come and give me tickets for giving free goods and services. Do you know that in our municipalities, we have a law that says giving free goods and services is illegal? Do you know that if you give a sandwich to a dying child on the streets in our cities, you're breaking the law? Do you know that there is a law that giving printed material is also prohibited? If I give a Bible to you on a public sidewalk, I just committed a crime in Canada. People don't know that, because if you're not doing what the church is commanding us to do, which is going out, well, you have no idea, because they have not been attacking us in our buildings, in our churches. They knew better at the time. But I was always involved. I feed thousands of people, and of course I do it publicly, because we deal with those that no one else wants to deal with the worst of the worst, if you will. So they started to come, 340 citations. My biggest tickets were having an illegal signage that said Jesus is King. Now I have beaten that. They gave me a $100,000 ticket for feeding the homeless in 2020. I'm still facing that trial in December. And of course, I was involved with the Quds, the tribe convoy. But here is how it started. They kept coming. I kept repelling them like those annoying flies that we have here. I believe that those flies here are liberals. There must be. NDP at best. They're so annoying. And we have been very good to them. You know, we have been very good to the liberals and the NDP flies. We don't want to kill them, but they keep coming. So it's your choice. It's really up to you. You can be annoyed by them, attacked by them, or you can do something about it. After, I'll tell you how you deal with them. I have been told many times that what we're doing is splitting the votes. Have you heard about that? Splitting the votes. And we have been doing a revolving door for years. I have been doing the revolving door for years, for decades actually. I remember we always told, if you vote for a smaller party, then you're splitting the votes and you're giving it to the NDP, or you're giving it to the liberals. But let me ask you this simple question. Please tell me the difference between NDP, liberals, and the conservatives today, because I see none. It was not the NDP that did this to me. It was not the NDP that put me in solitary confinement for my crime of keeping the church open. It was not the liberals that kept me in the metal cages in prison. It was not the liberal government that put me there. It was the conservative government that I helped to elect. Shame on me. I really believe that those people are good people. I really believe that they're going to defend us. They're going to stand up for us, Albertans. I was mistaken. I was wrong. So now people are coming and saying, you're going to split the votes and NDPs will get in. Maybe the NDPs will be better. Because they didn't hurt me. I mean, they destroyed the economy. I call them the destroyers. They're communists and socialists, but it was not them that kept me in metal cages. It was not them that kept me in solitary on concrete without water and washroom. It was the UCP government. They locked us up. They invaded our churches. They destroyed our businesses. They forbidden you to come to restaurants. It was them. So seriously, are we going to believe that if they betrayed us once, they're not going to do it again because now they're nice people? They were bad yesterday, but now they're nice because the COVID disappeared. Have you heard about monkeypox? I always, since the beginning, when I saw muzzled people, oh, my wife was giving me such a hard time because I just couldn't help it. When I saw people muzzled, I said, like, another monkey in the circus, triple monkey, double monkey. Wow, what happened to our brain? And she said, stop it with those masks. Just stop it, leave them alone. I can't. I don't understand how low we have fallen that we have forgotten to use the gray cells that God has given us. Use it, at least from time to time. And from the very beginning, I was saying this is like a Planet of the Apes. I don't know if you have watched that movie. Many years ago, they did a movie that was called The Planet of the Apes, and the apes took over. I don't know if you remember that movie. And that's exactly what I was observing. It looked like some apes took over our lives. It was unbelievable. They kind of looked like apes too. The Planet of the Apes. And when the monkeypox showed up, I said to my wife, told you. I told you. Didn't I? From the very beginning, this is the Planet of the Apes. Now we have monkeypox. But why am I telling you this? Because I'm looking for the monkeypox and I cannot find it. Maybe it's hiding under you, Mom. Are you keeping it hidden from us? What happened to the monkeypox? I'll tell you what happened. It did not fly. They were hoping to scare the people with another strain, another thing, but people have enough of the lie, and it just did not fly. So what they did, they went back to the basics. The COVID worked. The scare tactics worked. So right now, what you're seeing in Ontario, I don't know if you're paying attention to what's happening. Whatever is happening in Ontario, it's coming here. You know that? Because that's the push. In Ontario, they already are talking about the same thing that they were talking 2 years ago. The hospitals might be overwhelmed. The hospitals could be overwhelmed. Strain on the system and this and that. If you don't muzzle yourself, then we're going to make the mandates again. We're going to bring the restrictions again. Those are the tactics of the tyrants. Splitting the votes, we have nothing to split anymore. We have been betrayed by all of them. All of them. So what do? I shared that story 2 days ago. In Medicine Hat, I was sitting in a solitary confinement because I dared to do a church service for the truckers. And I remember the Crown Prosecutor was pressuring me and others were pressuring me to take the plea, and they said, well, if you say that you're apologizing, if you say that you're sorry that you were participating in this, we'll let you off the hook. We will withdraw the charges. And I remember I said to them, how can I say I'm sorry? This was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in this country. It was the most patriotic. Here is what I saw. I saw different colors, people coming together. It didn't matter if you're young or old, a woman or a man. It didn't matter if you're a cat or a dog. We all came together for this nation. We came together because we love this land. You see, my story is very simple. I did not come to Canada for money. I was a very successful businessman in Europe. I was making lots of money in Europe. I came to Canada for freedom. Because in Europe, I had to bribe the police. I had to bribe politicians. I was sick and tired of bribing those devils. I came here because I believe that this nation is ruled by law. I love law. My God is God of law. He designed the rules. The Ten Commandments belong to Him. He is God of law and order. He's not God of chaos. I came here because I was sick and tired of chaos. And I wanted to come to a nation that stands on the law, the rule of law. Do you know your preamble? Our Charter of Rights and Freedom starts with the preamble. Do you know it? Whereas Canada acknowledges the supremacy of God and the rule of law. That's why I came here. And I know that majority of people that emigrated here, especially from the countries like mine, came here for freedom. Because money comes and goes. If you work hard, like I worked hard all my life, the money will come. It's not actually a big problem to make money. if you're a hardworking person. But when you lose your freedoms, you know that the second or third generation will have to spill the blood to get it back. That's just history. They were terrifying us. They were telling us that the West is evil. They were telling us that the West is this monster that is to eat us. And of course, later on we found out the truth. The socialism and communism was the monster that was eating us alive. I grew up in hell. And I sometimes will tell the stories of my childhood, but I have a hard time to explain it to you. When was the last time you were thinking about chocolate and not just to eat it? Generally. Not many often, unless you go to a store and you want to buy a chocolate, right? Well, in Poland or behind the Iron Curtain, it was not that simple. I saw a chocolate once a year during Christmas. And if my mom bribed someone to get a second one for my birthday, that was a miracle. And if it was another miracle, if that chocolate had peanuts in it, it was a double miracle. And here's what I did. You know, chocolate has those little bars. I would break that little bar and I would leak the chocolate around that peanut and I would save it for the next day so it can last longer. When I look at the young people, how can I tell you those stories that we didn't see oranges for years? Some children never saw them. The bananas, what is banana? Monkeys are eating bananas, that's it. From the cartoons. How can I tell you a story that every single week I had to stand in a lineup and I could not see the end of it for a bread? One loaf of bread? How can I tell you what socialism, communism is? When the only thing my parents were doing all the time was hunting. Hunting for sugar, hunting for meat, hunting for this or hunting for that. If you broke your shoes, forget about it. It can be a year until you are able to buy a brand new pair. That's communism. That's NDP. And they want it here. They want it here. Have you heard that they were already telling you, announcing what's ahead for you? That you will own nothing? And you will be eating crickets? And you will be happy? They're not hiding this. They're telling you what's coming. And people come back to me and they say, you're splitting the votes. Don't you get it? They are in it together. You think your UCP is going to save you? With zero net emissions? That they're talking about it already? They're not hiding. You will be riding a bicycle, you know that? In minus 35, enjoy it. Because that's what's coming. So why do we need an independence from Ottawa? I told you 2 days ago I'm going to finish the story, so I'll do my best. Why do we need independence from Ottawa? Because we are not Ottawa's doormats. We are Albertans. And it's time to get our independence back. It's time to take our freedom back. We have been giving billions of dollars every single year to a beast that is eating us. We have given over almost $1 trillion to Ottawa. Do you know who is the richest, which is the richest province in Canada? Is Ontario. And here is how the structure is put in place. None of it has one seat in the House of Commons. Northwest Territories 1, Yukon 1, Manitoba 14, Saskatchewan 14, Alberta 34, British Columbia 42, totaling 107 seats. Keep this number in mind. 107 seats in Western Canada combined together. Ontario alone has 121 seats. Every single time Ontario wants something against the Western provinces and territories, it gets it. We're talking about insanity here. We're talking about one province that is controlling the entire country. And everything we do, the hard work and the things that we want to leave it behind and give it to our children, that when I was growing up, you couldn't own anything. Everything was public. Everything was NDP, communism. You will own nothing and you will be happy. We didn't own anything, and I'm telling you, we were not happy. It's a lie. How come Trudeau is telling you that you will own nothing and you're going to be happy while he flies private jets? I don't understand why people do not understand this. When Schwab is telling you garbage, when Gates are telling you you will own nothing, and yet he is the biggest land owner in the United States of America as of today. And he's telling you you will own nothing and you will be happy. At the same time, they're buying and buying and buying. Don't you see it? What's happening? This is tyranny. They're preparing you for tyranny. Why the heavy attack in the past few years? I'll tell you why. Because in order to implement tyranny, you have to eliminate the opposition. That's just simple. Of course, you got to take the guns. That's why the gun grab is happening right now. Property rights, all of that is under attack. But they need to eliminate the middle class. Why the middle class? Because middle class is usually highly educated, well-traveled, and if you are tipped, you can hire a lawyer and fight with the government. Even if it costs you a lot, you can fight them. So what they're doing, they're eliminating the middle class, creating two categories of people, the masters and the slaves. Extremely poor people that will have two jobs. And when I'm telling you, when you got two jobs, you cannot rally. You cannot go and do protests. You cannot spend even an hour to do anything else, because everything you do is just surviving. That's communism. That's where I'm coming from. And I said that thousands of times. You don't have to believe Artur Pawlowski. Believe my accent. I grew up behind the Iron Curtain in hell. We are being outvoted every single time. But with the support of the Quebec, which is 78 seats, we are done for. New Brunswick has 10 seats, Nova Scotia 11, Newfoundland and Labrador 7, and Prince Edward Island 4 seats. So combined together, we have 338 MPs. Ontario and Quebec together have 199. Almost 200. So whatever they want, they always get. Every single time. Every single time. That's why from the very beginning, and even before forming of the Confederation, the West was treated like a retarded, unwanted brother or a sister. And I'm thinking to myself, well, let me ask you this question. Do you want to be treated like a retarded brother? While you're paying them 50% in taxes? So you go to work hard, you get the bruises and the scratches and cuts, and then you bring $1,000 home, and half of that is going to a very person that hates you. It hates you so much that calls you retarded fellow. Would you keep giving them that money? If I called you every single day I see you, I hate your guts, you're retarded, but give me your 50% of your salary, what would you say? If you say yes, I'll come. And I'll do your job. And I'll pretend I'm Justin Trudeau Castro. But that's exactly what is happening to us. And I know that's hard to swallow, because we have been lied to for so long that it's very hard to acknowledge that. You know, it's easier to lie to people than for those people to acknowledge they were lied to. I remember the quote, being a Polish man, I grew up in a city, we had a concentration camp right in our city. We were playing in the bunkers of the SS when we were kids. I remember the famous saying, propaganda, propaganda, propaganda. What is required is just propaganda. Joseph Goebbels for Adolf Hitler, he was the minister of propaganda. Adolf Hitler said those words, make the lie big. Keep repeating it over and over and over again. And people will believe it. Eventually, people swallow everything, including crickets. And if you want to keep eating crickets, be my guest. I believe that we have the best beef on earth. I'm going to keep eating Alberta beef. There cannot be talk about equality at all with such a system. We cannot talk about fair deal if we're being used only as a workforce supplying goods to the masters living in the East. So how can we achieve fair deal? The answer is actually very simple. Let me go back to history. Some people ask me to share a little bit from Poland behind the Iron Curtain. I remember tough times. I remember constant lineups. I remember when my parents were asking me to stand in a lineup for 1 kilo of coffee. And the lineup was for 3 days. Day and night, day and night, day and night. And I remember they were coming and switching. I went to school and I came back. I had to stand 4 hours. My mom would go and cook, and then she would change me to my father, and that was going on for 3 days to buy 1 kilo of coffee. And that was normal. I remember the lineups, and it was a normal thing to stop and ask the people in the lineup what's coming. Oh, we don't know, but we know something is coming. You would stand in the lineup because something was coming. No one knew what was coming to the store because the stores were empty, but something was coming. That means you can exchange with your neighbor. You can buy something that you don't actually need, but your neighbor might. Do you want to live in a country like this? Put it this way. I see some gray hair, so maybe you don't care. You've lived your life relatively okay and it's good. But look at the kids, look at the young people. Do you want this as an inheritance for them? Do you want them to stand in a never-ending lineup because some Castros in Ontario, Quebec, or whatever are flying private jets and buying land? I don't. The answer to our independence is very simple, by referendum. We're promising that within a year of forming a majority government, we're going to give you back the voice that you should always have. Since when we came with an idea that only few elected people are deciding our future, and what's more important is the future of our children. How come those few people can do this to us and we have no say whatsoever? Except when they come and steal our 50% in taxes. Referendum is a must. There's some nations in Europe that have referendum twice a year. That will give us a leverage. And that leverage will give us negotiation powers. So freedom only comes to those that are diligently seeking that freedom and are willing to defend what's rightfully theirs. Let me ask you this question. Whose land is this? Trudeau's?
No.
Kenny's? Hinchin's? Chandros? Copping's? Or put another snake into this equation. Whose land is this? I mean, your house, who owns it? Because we just learned that Canadians own nothing. If you were paying attention, they've told you you own nothing. They own everything. Since when? Not under our watch. Prosperity, good education, not indoctrination, but education. I want our children to learn about mathematics and biology and history. I want our children to be smart, not indoctrinated, thinking that 2 cows will actually produce a calf. I mean, this is crazy stuff. That there's 10,000 different genders these days. I only know of 3 genders. And believe me, there are only 3 genders. Man, woman, and stupid. I don't find any other gender out there. Only 3. So prosperity, good education, prosperity, property rights, protection from government overreach, ability to tap into your resources. Whose resources? We have in this amazing province. Do you know that if we take independence, if we take destiny into our own hands, do you know that we can become Saudi Arabia of North America? We got more oil, than other nations on earth. Whose oil is that? Trudeau's? No, he has his company in Saudi Arabia. You know that Justin Trudeau's family owns oil rigs in Saudi Arabia. That's why he's channeling oil here. Do you know that? That everything is about money in the end. We have this famous saying in Poland, if you do not know what the whole thing is all about, it's always about money. You will own nothing. But they never said that they will own nothing. And if you're going to fall into this, then shame on you. Or people say, you don't talk like a politician. Dog. That's why I'm running. Because I don't want to be a politician. I just want to clean the swamp. I'm the best plumber you will ever have. I know how to do it. I was a builder before. I know how to build and I know how to unplug your toilets if needs be. And I have the biggest plunger that there is. We need to have our ability again to tap into our resources. We have been robbed for over 100 years. The future of our land depends not on the wishes of the tyrants, but on the willingness of those that are willing to say no more. Let me read that again. The future of our land depends not on the wishes of the tyrants. We know their wishes. We know what they have planned for you and me. They're not hiding it anymore. They're telling you their plan, the Agenda 2030. I hope you're paying attention. See, that's what you do with it. Right. Kill it, the bugger. NDP liberal. Fly. The future of our land depends not on the wishes of the tyrants, but on the willingness of those that are willing to say no more. Enough is enough. We want our country back. We are perfectly capable to govern ourselves and make sure that the future of our children is firmly secured. When I was in that solitary confinement, I remember going back and forth. I mean, there's not much to do. They took my Bible away, then they gave it back, didn't give me my glasses, they were messing with me. Every day they would drag me from one solitary confinement with the bed to the one on concrete without washroom, without water. They were trying to break me. You see, they wanted me to say guilty so I can get out of hell, so they can have their front page story. We've told you, Pastor Artur Pawlowski, that has become a symbol of fight against tyranny, a symbol of freedom. He says himself he is guilty. That's what they want. But when I was there, I was praying, I was thinking, I said, God, what I can do more than just being a pastor. I can do more than just yelling and screaming from the rooftops. What can I do? And I believe that God says you have to engage yourself. Die. You have to engage yourself in the political arena. And I remember standing up like this wounded lion, caged lion, going back and forth, and I said, fine. I have been surrounded by politicians all my life. I used to build houses, multi-million-dollar houses for ministers, chief of police, famous singers, actors. That's what I did for a living. All my life I was surrounded by famous people and powerful people. And politics is like a sewer canal. And I never wanted to be in the middle of it. Human manure in a sewer canal. That's what politics is. There's no fun being surrounded by snakes wherever you go. But people that always want to stab you in the back. People that always want something from you. They don't like you because of you. They like you, or they pretend to like you because they want something from you. But I realized maybe for the first time in my life, I have to become a politician, I guess. And what was chasing me yesterday, I'm going to be chasing tomorrow. I have to engage them on their turf. I have to engage them on their ground. They were attacking me. Now it's time to be offensive and go to them, to their territory. And then Bob Blyon came, and Vicky came, and Katrine came, and when I was released from prison, and I'm thinking, I'll build solidarity movement just like in Poland. Polish people took it to the streets in 1980. Within the first year, they had 1 million members. And the government got so scared that they outlawed solidarity movements, and it grew to 3 million members. And within a few years, Poland got its freedom. In 1989, Polish people had their first democratic election since the invasion of the Germans. In 1989, Poland got its freedom because people were willing to go to prison. My wife was a smuggler. When she was a kid, they were putting pamphlets into her backpack to smuggle solidarity pamphlets to different meetings. If you were caught with one pamphlet, there was 1 year of imprisonment after torture, of course. They were always torturing you. They were always beating you up. If you were caught listening to a European radio, there was 5 years of imprisonment. Do you want that for your children? Because Trudeau is implementing, as we speak, censorship. Right now, we don't have 5 years to think about it. We don't have 10 years to build a party and make it big. If we do not do this the right way now, I fear for you. I'll tell you why I will be okay, and we had this discussion. Because I grew up in hell. For me, this is a repetition of history. I've seen this movie before. I'll survive. We are survivors. I survived behind the Iron Curtain. I'll survive in Canada through those. But what about you? Do you understand what you're dealing with? Do you understand the beast? Can you stand in a lineup for 3 days for a kilo of coffee? Do you know even how? Do you understand what I'm even saying to you? May God give us the wisdom, the strength, and the courage to take back what's rightfully ours. Independence is waiting for those that are not afraid to take their destiny into their own hands. So be blessed, and I want to invite a friend of mine, a man that came with Vicky and Katrine to my house when I was just a freshly free bird. And they said, would you run for the leadership? And the first thing I had in my heart, no way, Jose. Find some other victim. I'm not interested. But then God reminded me that prayer in that solitary cell, you have to engage them on their own turf. In other words, history is teaching us that you can have the strongest castle, the biggest, the most powerful castle on earth. But if that castle only defends itself, sooner or later, the walls will give in. You know why the castles were so powerful and strong? Because the soldiers were coming from the castle and they were possessing the land. Today, that's what we're doing. We have built the castle. They've built the castle. A party, a bus, or whatever you want to call it, the wheels that will take us to Edmonton. But we gotta have soldiers that are willing to possess the land. Whose land is this? If it's Trudeau's, go back to whatever you were doing and keep voting UCP and call them your saviors. That's fine. But if you're sick and tired of the lie and the betrayal at the highest levels, then you have to do something that you did not do before. Vote for the underdog, for something new, grassroots, populist movement of people that are just like you, just like you. Bob Blyon, our candidate for the Medicine Hat, Brooks area, a friend, not a politician, not a career politician, God's politician, a man that I believe has the strength and the integrity to challenge the status quo and make a tangible and real changes. Let's welcome Bob.
Just give me 1 second. They're shorter than me. Thank you, everybody. It's a pleasure to be back in Brooks, and thanks for coming out tonight. Thanks to all the volunteers for setting up this event. It is truly an honor to be running in Medicine Hat Brooks. I get asked the question sometimes, why am I here? I consider Alberta to be my home, the whole province. And if successful, my wife and I have made the commitment to move here. I care about all Albertans, both my wife and I do. So there's not too many chances we get to have a conversation with the Premier of Alberta on stage. I'm looking forward to that conversation on November 3rd. There's an all-candidates forum, and we've been informed that we're invited, so looking forward to that. So a little bit about myself. I was actually born in Tabor, and we lived in Raymond until I was 6 years old, and my father moved us north for opportunity. I've been come from a very humble beginning. We learned the value of hard work. We went through some tough times as a child. No food in the house often. I wouldn't change that for the world. I wouldn't trade that for anything. It taught us to persevere, to be self-reliant, to stand up for ourselves. And I believe that's why I'm here today. It taught me to care about other people also. So I've been very blessed in life. Been married to my wife, Dana, a beautiful person, my best friend for 31 years. We have 2 children, 2 young adult children that we're blessed to have as well. I'm uncle to over 40 nieces and nephews. I come from a family of 9, so all of us were born in different towns across Western Canada. So that's kind of unique. We made the most of out of our opportunity. We were blessed with opportunity in Alberta. So my wife and I together worked and ran an oil and gas service company. We supplied drill bits to drilling rigs. And we had, for 20 some years, we had our head down and we raised our family, ran our business. And at the end of 2014, we sold our business, got off that roller coaster. And we thought we'd be traveling the world, but here we are. And we are literally dedicating our lives to fighting for the future of Alberta. That's why we're here. I'm also a proud Métis with Indigenous ancestral history that goes back to my 4th great grandfather, Chief Black Powder, and my 3rd great uncle, Chief Big Bear. They were 2 ferocious leaders of their time, and they were the last holdouts to the signing of Treaty 6. There's 2 quotes that resonate passionate in me today that they spoke long ago to the politicians and government of their time. The first was, "Come to us as men. Do not come to us with trinkets," as our government is doing again today, buying people off. The second was, "I will not live with a noose around my neck." And this is another thing I'm very passionate about. Neither will I, nor allow my children to, nor your children to also. This is where we fight and we stand together to push back on that. So after selling our business, I had time. And I was always fascinated in politics and frustrated like everybody else. So I thought I'd get involved, and I volunteered and I got involved in UCP. Very involved. Our MLA was a 6-year staffer under Kenny when Kenny was an MP. So I had inside access, not that I care about rubbing shoulders with the politicians, but it was a really good educational experience for me. I got to see how little these politicians care about people and how much they just want to self-serve and fill their own pockets. That's what I saw. It's truly disgusting. When COVID began, I started pushing back in a big way, and I didn't have any support from the board. There was people on the board, I didn't know at the time, that had government contracts or whatnot that was holding them back. And that's the secret. And that's what the work Vicky's doing right now is so important on CA building. When you have the mechanisms there to hold the politicians accountable, the MLAs accountable locally, with people you trust around that table, community leaders, and when you have the ability to recall the MLA, when you have the ability to have annual performance review on those MLAs, to treat them like employees rather than our rulers, that is the key to change. All parties have taken out all mechanisms of accountability. There is none. And that's why I have no hope in the UCP ever changing their ways, no matter what these political operatives will tell you. There's no mechanisms there to hold those politicians accountable. So I left disappointed and disgusted. I walked away looking for something new and inspiring. I was the co-founder and the former president of the Alberta Prosperity Project. They've done a great job of informing Albertans about the solution of a referendum. I left there on April 4th to go over to the Independence Party, a party I saw as just regular Albertans. It was a small party. It was perfect. No career politicians there. They were welcoming. They're the only party that proved to me time and time again, and Vicky was at that table, of being open to the idea of unity among the independence-minded parties. So it was an easy decision for me. So we are truly your friends and neighbors, and we stand with you, firmly with you. And it's our time to stand together and flip the table over on these self-serving politicians. This is our only hope, and this is our only option to bring true, meaningful change. So there's a few things that we got going on now that's much more dynamic than it's ever been, and I believe this is why the independence movement has grown so strong. There's a big awakening out there of the reality of what we're facing, this global agenda, the World Economic Forum. So not only are we having to solve Ottawa's overreach, but now it's the globalists that have taken over our politicians. So what will create meaningful change and solve issues that impact the sovereign rights, freedoms, and prosperity of all Albertans? A referendum on independence or the Sovereignty Act. The Sovereignty Act is designed to trigger a constitutional crisis. Politicians promoting that plan are already flip-flopping on that and stating that they will follow the will of the Supreme Court of Canada. Of course they will. They know that. They know that. So the Sovereignty Act will accomplish one thing, and one thing only. It will maintain the status quo for the politicians. That's a win for the politicians and a loss for us. That's a lie they're telling. It's a lie with a purpose of not changing anything. Just think about that. The politicians will never enact any policy where they're held accountable. Ever. So if we are to address issues which affect the well-being of Albertans, leverage is needed. Leverage is key. So like I said, it's sad to say, as Art spoke to, the tyranny that's coming with this World Economic Forum climate change agenda, it'll be the wrecking ball to Alberta's resource industries, all of them. It's going to decimate it. It'll hurt all Albertans very badly, including public sector workers. And they are waking up too. I had made a connection with the head of a public union, and he shocked me from what he said. He said he's watching this movement very closely, that they've given up hope on the UCP, on the NDP, that they know they're on the verge of losing everything, he said. Their jobs, their pensions, everything. I said, holy cow, you're wide awake. He said, yes, we are. So this is crossing party lines. All demographics of life, of society are coming to us. So to secure Alberta's national and global sovereignty, to defend ourselves, truly defend ourselves, the Independence Party holds firm to the strategic position of holding a referendum on independence within the first year of gaining that leverage, that power. So how about this for meaningful change? Alberta's right to develop our natural resources, oil sands, natural gas, building more pipelines and rail to tidal waters, and ending carbon taxes. Ending equalization and net federal transfers out of Alberta. Solving Alberta's lack of representation in the Parliament, in the Senate, and in the Supreme Court, and expelling the World Economic Forum and the WHO from our land. This is the big one. Creating a fair and just justice system again. It's heartbreaking the outreach we're getting. Even as our little party, people are watching us and they trust us, and they're starving for somebody to fight for them. It's heartbreaking. Families, what they're going through, individuals, brutal. The table truly needs to be flipped over. How about restoring parental rights? And lowering taxes. It's enough already. We've got to get their grubby hands out of our pockets and get this bloated government back under control. So solving all those challenges requires opening the Constitution. That requires all of the following: a majority vote in Parliament, a majority vote in the Senate, a majority vote in 7 of 10 provinces, equaling 50% of Canada's population. We know Quebec's going to have a veto. They've flexed that so many times. The last was Bill 96, their language law. And the Supreme Court, as the politicians know where their Sovereignty Act will go directly to, where constitutional challenges are argued. The Supreme Court is structured this way. There's one justice from the Maritime provinces, 3 justices from Ontario, 3 from Quebec, and 2 in all of Western Canada. Hopeless. The Canadian political power structure is stacked against Alberta. Without leverage, it's hopeless. So our answer, our only answer, is a referendum on independence. That is our power. And that is why the politicians are scared of that. They know the power of that, how this will upset their apple cart and end their gravy train. So lastly, for far too long, Indigenous peoples have also been excluded from the table of government. It's time that they too had a say in the rebuilding of Alberta prosperity, that they sit at the table with us to create this new future where we all work together to create prosperity. It's time all of us Albertans once again work together in being partners in the rebuilding of a prosperous and free Alberta. So I hope, the conversations that we're having in Medicine Hat in the area here are inspiring to me. It really is. It's a welcoming atmosphere we have, even though, one of the first things I make a point of saying is that I am from Peace River. I do live in Peace River. And that's okay with a lot of people. They want somebody that that'll fight for them, that'll change things for them. So we'll see what we can do here. We're gonna work hard. We've got a great team. We're gonna knock on some doors. We're gonna share our message out and do what we can do. It's a short campaign, so we could use all the volunteers, and even volunteering just means handing out rat cards. Handing out rat cards, letting everyone know that there's a candidate here, there's a new party that wants to create change. So let's make it happen. So thank you, everybody.
Okay, so we did set some time aside for some questions and answers. If, like normally we walk around with a little index card, but we didn't do that today, so you can either shout your answer out or you can speak it into the microphone. Your choice. I just wanted to point out a couple of bits of trivia here. And my friend at the back of the room, who's a social studies teacher, should probably know this already. We have had two very successful Alberta premiers who were pastors. William Aberhart, known as Bible Bill, was the 7th premier of Alberta from 1935 to 1945. And Ernest Manning was the 8th premier of Alberta from 1943 to 1968, serving 25 years, the longest serving premier in the Commonwealth. So this is what we gotta do. We have to start by having Bob Leone elected as our MLA here in Brooks Medicine Hat, and then we will make Pastor Art the 3rd pastor to become the premier. He's already proved himself to be an exceptional leader and a warrior like no other, right? May as well just do it, okay? So I'm gonna invite Bob and Pastor Art back up here for some questions. If you have any, you can just shout them out, probably that would be the best. Raise your hands first, please.
Believe it or not, Aberhart, every single Sunday, would preach to his congregants, and the message was broadcasted. Guess how many people were listening to this man every week? 300,000, week after week after week. When Manning won, 600,000 people were listening to his services every single week. Look how far we have fallen from what Canada used to be all about. Our national anthem, God, keep our land glorious and free. The Peace Tower, Ride-ups, Dominion from sea to sea. I mean, this is the history of our nation. If you don't remember where you're coming from, you don't know where you're heading. You gotta cherish your history. Sometimes it was good, sometimes it was not so good, but it's our history. You don't cut your uncle because he doesn't look as good as you. Right? Like when you were talking about your ancestry, I mean, what a crazy last names. What were they like?
Chief Black Powder, Chief Big Bear.
Black powder, probably because he was carrying a lot of powder to kill the white fox, maybe. But that's his history. Why would this man be ashamed of his history? It is. No one can steal that away. I'm sure they were not perfect, but they were yours. You're keeping them, right? Why we're not doing the same here? We gotta go back for what's right for the hour. So, any questions?
I'm gonna be difficult and ask the first question. So, can you explain to everyone here why the referendum is more powerful than the Sovereignty Act? What is it that the referendum actually does in the legal system?
What does it do? It gives us the leverage to get Ottawa to the table, to negotiate.
Who votes? How many percentage wins?
Oh, so yeah, it's a 50+1, but I mean, we want to see a 60. Personally, I want to see a strong signal.
So why does that referendum though open up the Constitution when the Sovereignty Act doesn't?
Because it's a constitution, it's a lawful and legal process.
What is the process? So is there
The Clarity
yes.
Act was put in place after the last Quebec referendum. And so we have to have a clear question. It's the clarity, and it has to be a very simple question to ask Albertans whether or not they want to seek their independence. And if it is a successful yes, it's not that we separate that day. There's a negotiation process that happens. So right from day one, once we're elected with the majority government, we go to work with, installing our police force, pensions, immigration, unemployment insurance and all that. While that's going on, we're negotiating. We do set a deadline for Ottawa. Within a year, you have 1 year to sit down with us and negotiate. And it's on their shoulders. We put it on them. And if they do not want to negotiate, and we have no other choice, we have that very powerful card in our hand, and we play it. And that's it. We declare our independence. We go through that process legally, lawfully, and that's it. Simple. Very simple. But it's powerful.
That's why we need to have our own police force. We need to have our own people that are actually hired to protect not Justin Trudeau, but Albertans. And we came with a powerful name in the past few days with my son when I was going hunting, and we were thinking about how should we call this new police force, and we came with this idea, Alberta Rangers, just to tick them off even more. Alberta Rangers, referencing to the most powerful force, in the United States. They were brave warriors, the Rangers. But the thing is, you have to have your own police force. If you have a police force that is working for people that are thousands of miles away from you, you really think they're going to protect you? They're protecting the interests of those that hire them. We got to change that. We also need to start not appointing judges, but we need to vote for judges. Do you know where the judge lives? Have you seen a judge? For the past 3 years, we've seen them. We know they are probably there, hiding behind a Zoom, but it could be a Mickey Mouse talking to you with the face of a human. You didn't know. We don't know where they live. Do you know where the judges live? They're hiding. It used to be that the judge was from within the community. That you knew him, you knew his family, he was a good man, proven man, the neighborhood loved him. He was an upstanding citizen, tax-paying, good man. Who knows who those people are? Maybe if they're from China. We don't know. We've lost accountability. We've lost checks and balances. We cannot any longer appoint them. We have to vote for them, and the communities have to vote for those people. In order to achieve that, you need to have your own police force. You need to have constitutional sheriffs. You need to bring anti-corruption force that is watching politicians. In other words, what we want is a whip against ourselves. Why? Because we're humans. We're no different than you. If you don't keep an eye on a human, you know what humans do? I know, I'm a pastor. I deal with that all the time. We love to go like that fly that I killed. Left, not right. So we need those things, the checks and balances, accountability, some kind of a force with the teeth that is watching Bob. Bob, are you actually doing what you promised? What was your plan? Excuse me, you were promising before I voted for you that you're going to do this and this and this and this for me. Well, you're not doing it, sir. We voted for you because we trusted you. You had nice eyes and we wanted to trust those eyes, but you don't do it. Either put your act together or you know what? We're going to recall. We're going to get you out and we're going to put someone else that will actually work for us for a change. When was the last time we had this? During the times of the kings, maybe. It's so long that the Indians do not remember. You don't remember. This is crazy stuff. And yet it's such a foundational stuff. Accountability. Hey, I want you to elect me and I'm promising I'm going to do this and this and this and this for you. Boom, you elect me and the next day, who are you? I don't care about you. What are you going to do to me in the next 4 years? Excuse me, what are you going to do to me in the next 4 years? Nothing. Because there are no checks and balances. There's no accountability. That's what this party is all about. It's like I said many times, give me the plunger, let me clean, let me unplug this craziness, and so I can go back to my church. Let's go to work.
With regards to an independence referendum, I have the understanding that is indeed a constitutional thing that we can do. Some people think, oh, that's illegal, you can't do that. But am I correct that it is a constitutional?
That's correct. I mean, Quebec has had 2
That's right.
conversations about, their referendum discussions. 2. And even though they came up short, they won,
That's right.
right? They got their power back.
Yeah, so for those that think this is something you can't do, yes.
No, it's lawful. It's
My
lawful.
question is, and this comes from a friend whom I informed about this, about the Medicine Hat event, because I thought she'd be interested, but her response is one that I know we will all be hearing from lots of people, and one or the other of you mentioned it already about the splitting votes. And I know that's gonna be, you said that you're willing to join together, that the Independence Party is the only party promoting independence that's willing to work with the other groups that are doing likewise. Just today, the Wild Rose Independence Party stopped at our house. So, how do we address that with people? How do we assure them that voting for Bob Leone or the Independence Party is not going to automatically put the NDP back in power? And I know, Councilor, you said they're apples with different color skin, that's about it, they're all the same thing. But most people don't see it that way, right? So my question is, what would be a good response to reassure them?
A good response would be to educate them on what's going on, what the UCP are doing. My document in the back there, that they're actually partnered with the World Economic Forum. They're partnered with Trudeau on a lot of this stuff, partnered with him. So if that doesn't get their attention, and knowing that the NDP are also partnered in all that, if that doesn't get their attention, then maybe they won't wake up. But I tell you, in conversations around this region, there's a desire to see another option. There really is. So I haven't had, any real negative feedback yet, and I'm sure I'll get some, right? I don't know, I have great hope that people are ready. And I know there's a fear, it all leads back to fear. And again, if they're not awake, there's some people that aren't awake, and there's a percentage of the population, I don't know what that is. I believe it's low now, that people know something's wrong, and they understand. So here's something with the NDP. I have 4 friends, couples they're diehard NDP supporters, lifelong, that have signed up to the party. And again, back to the conversation with the head of the public union, what he's saying, I don't know, we'll see. I have great hope that we're not going that there's not as many people that are fearful as you might think there is.
But look at the history. I love history because it teaches us everything, right? Because it already past 20, 30 years in our beloved Canada. Look what the Conservative government did to us. You know who brought all of that craziness, the globalist craziness to Canada?
Stephen Harper.
It's hard to believe it, right? Because we always thought that he is the hero from here, from Alberta. Well, I know the man. I met him many times. I was the only clergyman to be invited all the time. I think they wanted to bribe me into the barbecues with Stephen Harper. I met half of the cabinet, and those are not good people. They're not good people, believe me. They're psychopaths. They're really dangerous individuals. So going back to your friends, ask them this question. For the past 20, 30 years, you had the Conservatives, you had the NDPs, you had the Liberals. Are you better off? Are you better off? We're paying more taxes than anyone in history. When the king would raise the taxes to 6, 7%, there was uproar. When he says 10%, he had a revolution. Because he says, you want to be like God? You give 10% to God. You don't give 10% to a man. And that's what I said. I said, if it's good enough for God, it should be good enough for the government. We should not be paying more than 10%. Are you insane? Giving to that piece 50% for what? For what exactly? What did they do to us or for us? woke culture, indoctrinating our children. Do you have better hospitals? 14, 15, 16 hours in emergency? Are you crazy? Where are our billions of dollars being given to them? Everything is a sham. Everything is corrupted to the core. I gave a teaching on 7 mountains of influence. Every mountain is corrupted to the core. Educational system, political, banking, everything. No matter what you look at, media, entertainment, it's all craziness at the highest levels. So tell them, okay, so you're going to vote for the UCP. You're going to have the same thing that we had 5 years ago, 10 years, 15 years, the same old, and you still be paying 50% in taxes or more, and eating crickets on top of that. It's time for a change. Is that not the definition that we always talk about, the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing, revolving door? We're gonna vote for them because someone worse will come. So here we are dealing with snakes, vipers, and scorpions. All are poisonous. Pick your choice. Pick your choice.
What about the Dominion voting systems that are now on their way up here again?
Yeah, so our answer to that is we need a lot of volunteers in the election to be scrutineers, have eyes and ears on those polling stations, and be bold and brave in that, and tell the people that are working those polling stations, we're watching you. And, yeah.
And
But
that,
we want, as a party, we want in-person elections. ID. I want to see your face. I want to know where you live. I want to cross-reference that, like it used to be. Right now, even the dog and the cats and the cows can vote. Here is a real story from behind the Iron Curtain. Putin, are you familiar with that fella? Well, I am very familiar because he was the head of KGB when I was growing up. A very interesting modern. So this guy, where perestroika came, so the Iron Curtain was being broken, the Berlin Wall was falling down, mafia took over our countries, Poland included, like mafia, hardcore mafia, prostitution, drugs, killing, murders, left and right, craziness. So Putin was asked to deal with mafia, and being a KGB head, he knew how to do it very quickly. He just shot them, and he took over the business. That's a true story. He became the head of mafia behind the Iron Curtain. Very quickly, he becomes the most powerful and the richest man on earth because he controls the liquor, he controls the oil, he controls everything, prostitution. And then he runs to become a politician. I mean, good for him. He wants to be democratically elected. I mean, like, I can't stop laughing. He wants to be democratically elected. Okay, so how you do that in tyranny? Well, you have a town or a village of 1,000 people, and he was a miracle working guy. Communists do believe in miracles. I'll prove it to you. Stop. Don't throw anything yet. They actually do believe in miracles. So what happened in that village, the village had 1,000 people, but 2,000 showed up during the election. And it turned out that he was so powerful and a man of faith that even the dead rose from the graves and became to vote. But that was not good enough for him. Then the cats and the dogs and the cows, everyone came to vote for Putin. He's a good man. He's an amazing man. So that's exactly what we're dealing with right now. Foreigners that have no rights to vote, dogs, cats, you name it, made up stuff. People in Calgary were voting 100 times in and out, revolving door with different names. We didn't have in Calgary a free and democratic election, the last mayoral election. I can tell you story after story. So no, if we win, one of the first things we're going to do, we're going to outlaw electronic voting and mail-in voting only allowed under extreme circumstances. If you physically cannot come, then maybe we'll send someone from like an officer to pick up those ballots. Because this is not democracy, this is tyranny. They're rigging. It was not Stalin that said those famous words, it's not who casts the votes that matters, but the one that counts them. That's exactly what we're seeing right now. I want to see your face. I want to see the government issued ID. I want to know where you live, and you got to show up in person. That's the democratic way. And if you don't want to show up in person, then you don't care about your future. So why should you vote? Stay at home, enjoy Netflix. Let the rest of us govern the nation.
Sorry, I'm just going to add to that, just so everyone is aware. Currently, in our provincial elections, we don't use Dominion voting. Now, if it does start heading that direction by May 2023, I really truly believe that it is on us as citizens to be making sure that it doesn't get in, that we are getting in touch with our politicians prior to that, if we see that that's coming in the next election. But at this point, provincial elections are done by paper ballot. Yes, there is some mail-in, but for the most part, it is in-person voting. And so we do need all the support we can get as scrutineers at every polling station, because I got to be involved in the Fort McMurray Lac La Biche by-election. We ran a candidate up there for that one. And, I went and scrutineered. It was my first time getting to kind of see that side of it. And honestly, it's probably the most legitimate vote we still have available to us is in the provincial election, as long as they do not bring in those machines, because it was actually very transparent. There was a lot of rules. It would be very difficult in our provincial election at this point, as long as they don't bring in the machines, to cheat. Because I got to stand there and watch them hand count every single ballot. So if we had volunteers at every single polling station to witness those counts, we can ensure that, we do get a fair deal and we get a fair shake.
Kenny, in the last leadership election started the cheating process. I don't know if you have been following closely the leadership. I learned about it when I was still in solitary in prison. But then when they let me out, I actually bought, I know, don't shoot me, but I bought the membership just to vote against this devil. And what he did, first of all, he lowered to 50 plus 1, I think from 65, if I remember correctly. And then he forbade people to do it in person, because the 60,000 members, believe it or not, the UCP party only had during that time 30,000 members. And that's your ruling party in the entire province of Alberta. So you think that thousands of people don't make a difference? In Poland, 50,000 communists were ruling over 36 million Polish people. So here we got 30,000 UCP members that were doing this to you, destroying your lives and businesses and locking you like monkeys in the circus. So 30,000, when they wanted to vote Kenny out, they signed up, 30,000 people like me, we signed up to vote him out. So he changed the rules. And then we wanted to do it in person, so there will be no cheating. And he says, no way, Jose, I'm not going to allow that. He shipped buses of his own people that said, no, we're not going to allow for this to happen. And I think it only was 5 or 6 places where you could actually go and vote in person. Everywhere else, it was mail-in ballots. So the process already, Vicky, started. They're planning to cheat the next election. They're working very hard to achieve that. And you're right, it will be up to us to rise up, stand up, and prevent them from happening.
And he hired Deloitte, who is a World Economic Forum partner, to work with him in that process.
Yeah, I don't know if you were observing Kenny. I like to see people, and I like to see their eyes. Eyes tell you everything. And especially as a pastor, you deal with liars on a regular basis and sinners. So I learned to look into people's soul through their eyes. Did you notice how he was behaving? When he came, I know Kenny for many years. When he came to Alberta, he portrayed himself as the savior, just like we have a new version of the savior right now. So he portrayed himself as a savior of Alberta. And then he was pushing that agenda, and then from one second to another, I don't know if you caught that. From one second to another, he completely flipped. And his face and his eyes changed completely. He was told what to say. He was told what to do. Why? Because he's a compromised politician. He has done things. They have something on him, pictures, videos. You can add to the story. He was blackmailed and he was bribed at the same time. Doug Ford, the same thing. The same scenario. They have stuff on those people. I had CCC in my house. They're like CIA, Canadian version. And I uncovered a pedophilia ring in the city of Calgary where politicians would have young boys inside City Hall. So they came to talk to me. And we were thinking, how to caught them in the act. And they told me that over 80% of Canadian politicians are either bribed or blackmailed, and they have the proof. And they brought that proof to the highest offices in the land. And you know what they did? Under the carpet. Under the carpet. That's what we're dealing with.
So, a question in the back?
About the state of affairs in the Canadian government. I've heard a rumor, and I was wondering if you could either confirm or otherwise enlighten it, that our finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, is actually on the board of the World Economic Forum. Now, for me, an elected official that takes their directives from somewhere else, that's a traitor.
That's treasonous.
Treasonous.
So when Art said that Stephen Harper brought this to Canada, he was sending ministers to the World Economic Forum summits in Davos, multiple, 5 of them. And Pierre Poilievre's co-chair of his campaign team was one of them, John Barrett. Another one, Joe Oliver from Alberta here, is part of, there's a lobbyist behind Danielle Smith who's involved in carbon capture. That was one of her supporters in her leadership. It's a long story, but yes, it's treasonous what they've done. They brought it in here, but Harper started it. Chrystia Freeland, all those connections are there. Isn't that something? The Liberals, the Conservatives, all one happy family when it comes to the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum has infiltrated our country. It's unbelievable. Municipal politicians, provincial, obviously, federal, across the board. Business leaders, very, very heartbreaking. Individuals like Murray Edwards, the founder of Canadian Natural Resources. He partnered with Bill Gates on funding a company called Carbon Engineering Limited out of Calgary, Alberta. One morning I woke up and I asked myself the question, who holds the carbon capture patent? Well, it's Carbon Engineering Limited out of Calgary, Alberta. They partnered, put the money into it. David Keith is the head of that organization. And David Keith is one of these heads of the snakes when it comes to the global climate change agenda. He is not our friend. His goal is shutting down our oil sands. So right in Calgary, our business leaders are partnering with this foolishness. Why? Money. Yeah, lots of money. $31.24 billion coming to Alberta for carbon capture projects. Carbon capture projects are funded, 70% of the cost of those projects are funded by us, the taxpayer. And that is the only reason why these oil companies are doing it. And it's not all the oil companies, it's just the ones that are politically connected. So one other, there's Michael Binion is another guy. And Michael Binion is behind Danielle Smith. Michael Binion is very good friends with Stephen Harper, Jason Kenney. Again, it's treasonous.
And there's so much more. Teresa Tam, are you familiar with that person? Well, it's a very interesting person because he doesn't know if he's a man or a woman. Besides that, that's our chief health officer that is telling us how to be healthy. I find that ironic. But that's operative from Hong Kong. You know the story? He was born in Hong Kong and came to Canada as operative, and he is the one that is dictating us, Canadians, how we are to live, who we may see. That's how crazy this whole thing is. And the swamp is so big, so that's why if you're thinking the Pierre is going to save you, or this new elected savior of Alberta is going to save you, you are, I'm sorry, delusional. Zero cup and all those different things. It's the same club. It's old boys and girls right now club. And they're going to do some good thing because they need to fool you. The election is in May. They're going to do some good things to fool the Albertans that they're on your side. But in the end of the day, they're going to stab you in the back just like they have done over and over and over again. It's up to you to stand up and rise up. Polish people were not waiting for the Americans to come, or Canadians at that time. Canadians were still normal. They actually believed that it takes a cow and a bull to have a calf, where they were normal. Polish people were not waiting for the Canadians or Americans to come to the rescue. They took it to the streets. They took their own destiny in their own hands. And Poland became the best democracy on earth. You gotta take it to the streets. You gotta go and door knock. You gotta convince your friends and your neighbors. It's up to you. What kind of a nation you wanna see tomorrow? It's not up to them. It's up to you. You.
I'm from High River, and Danielle Smith calls High River home until March this year. She sold her house. Her husband owns a restaurant, it's called The Train. And he is telling all of his staff that they will be laid off through the winter months because they have now bought a place in Panama. And Danielle, whether she is premier or not, they will be residing in Panama for the winter. So that is why she's not running in the town that she lives or plans to live. And I'm glad that Bob stood up and said, okay, you want a candidate? We have a strong candidate against somebody that is a snake.
That reminds me of the story when I went last year to United States to tell them what's happening behind the Iron Curtain in China now, because they need to know what's happening, because they think that their greatest enemy is, coming from the Mexico border. But I showed them that their greatest enemy is Chinese soldiers in Alberta, in British Columbia. Communism and socialism growing steady and strong here in Alberta. So when I was there, I remember the last meeting I had a number of people coming to me and they said, you're going to be arrested. Again, I said, I know I'm going to be arrested. I've done so much damage to the globalists. They will punish me for that. And they said, we give you money. We give you a ranch, a house. We'll give you a church. And we will relocate your family, your children and your wife to United States. You will never lack anything in our land. We want people like you. And I remember there was thousands of people in the room and I looked into their eyes and I said, listen, if I did that, I would become the biggest traitor that ever lived in Alberta. It would not be them, it would be me. To escape hardship for a bowl of soup. And here is what I said. Canadian children are worth fighting for. I have to go back to fight for them. You see, there comes a time where you have to put everything on the line. And either you win or you die trying to win. I believe with all my heart we came to this place in history that either we stand up and fight or they will finish us off. And it will be third or fourth generation. It will be her grandchildren, just like the Polish children, that would stand up 50, 60, 70 years from now, and they will demand back to what's rightfully there. Do you want that? Do you want to see your children and your grandchildren being enslaved? You have a question?
Yes. So now you mentioned Chinese. Agriculture in Canada has pretty much been stolen or given away by our governments, our lobbyists, producer organizations, to ultimately the Chinese through big multinational companies. 75% of the beef going on the plant just over here goes to China. 70 to 80% what goes out of High River goes to China. four of the biggest cattle feeding companies in southern Alberta and the biggest in Canada. Guess where their backing comes from? And I'll stand nose to nose and fight anybody that tries to tell me different. I rely heavily on the cattle business and ag in general. Is the Independence Party going to stop this theft of that resource as well as oil and gas? And I know oil and gas is a big buzzword, oil and gas, ag, it all goes hand in hand. But we have given away those massive resources.
100%. Here is what I'm going to do for you and the party will do for you. My background is business, and I am a strong supporter of ending monopoly. I hate monopoly. I believe that everyone should be free to do his business. What we have in the cattle business right now is monopoly.
Yes.
It's controlled 100%, and the beef producers are hurting left and right, and I hate that. I'll tell you why. It's a very dear to my heart, farming and beef producing. First of all, there's nothing on earth like Alberta beef, and I mean it. I traveled around the world and I tasted in the presidential palaces and with fancy dinners. There's nothing like Alberta beef. So I'm biased, okay? And I will fight for Alberta beef. But also I hate monopoly. I believe that the government's business is not to stifle and monopolize what belongs to the people. And we're going to change that. We're going to open beef industry for business, and you will be making your decisions where you're going to sell and for how much you're going to sell. And the same thing with oil industry, oil and gas. Right now, it's controlled by the federal government. They do to us as they please. Why? Because to them, you gotta understand that to them, Alberta is just a slave force. That's it. We are the breadbasket of Canada, actually the world, and they are sucking everything, taking everything from us. That's why you need independence. Independence, look at this. Independence means prosperity. They're stealing from us every single day. It means freedom. Why? Because when you prosper, you have your freedom. You don't need somebody's mercy. You're a king in your own castle, and that's how it used to be. But not anymore. That's why we gotta cut that beast out of us. And the only way we can do it is by leverage, by having the independence, having the papers. Because you gotta remember, we're not separatists. As you can see, I still have Canadian flag. Sometimes it's upside down, and I have to straighten it up all the time. But we're not separatists. We love our land. I love Canada. And if that takes some people off, too bad. I love Canada. I love what Canada used to be, the idea of Canada. Just like the American dream, Canadians, we had our own dream to be independent, to be free. We are not looking for a divorce. They divorced us already. Now we just have to take back what's rightfully ours. We don't want to leave Canada. They've left Canada. And if they want to go, I say go. Go and leave us alone. But for that to happen, we need to have police force, just in case. We need to elect judges, just in case. We need to have the force behind, and we need to have your voice. You have to give us the power to make those changes, have the referendum, and tell Ottawa, if you don't sit with us, like Bob said, within the year, if you don't sit down with us and bring back what it used to be, or supposed to be, within the Confederation, go. We're staying. We don't want to leave. They left.
Took me a long time to get this microphone back.
Remember at the beginning, I talked about Eli Weisel's words of one person of integrity can make a difference, and it really does start with one. We have two. One voice turns into two, and then four, and so on and so on. The speakers that you have heard this evening have demonstrated that. We're asking all of you to join us in making that difference. Those who we thought were people of integrity have shown us that they are not. We thought that what we thought to be our God-given rights and those guaranteed by the Constitution and by the Charter of Rights and Freedoms have been trampled. They've been tarnished and they've been tossed by the wayside. We've been misled and we've been betrayed by those we trusted to be our voice. They've demonstrated that not a single one of them had the courage to speak out, to speak the truth, or to be the lone voice of the people. They have shown that their only concerns were for themselves, their positions, and their paychecks. We have been sweeping across this province, and we will continue to do so, one constituency at a time. We're asking you to join us. Buy that membership, buy a hat, start a conversation. Join us as a volunteer. We need lots of you. Together we can build an independent nation, one that will be the best place to live, work, start a business, or raise a family in the world. And we have one chance to secure a future for our children and our grandchildren. We have one chance to gain our freedom, and that is by electing an independent-minded government in 2023. And it starts right here in Brooks Medicine Hat constituency with Bob Blayon. Your legacies depend on that. Thank you for coming. Be blessed.